Formed with Pacific Mornings.
Te alofa lava, welcome back to Pacific Mornings on 5:31 PI. The time is 18 minutes past 8. I'm your guest host, Saina Vaovasamanaia. Joining us on the show now is Foreign Affairs Minister Vaovasa Winston Peters. Welcome back to the show. We always appreciate you coming on. How are things on your end?
Very good, thank you, but it's a long time since I've seen you guys.
Yeah, and it's always, like we say, it's always good to have you back, so thank you for making the time. Let's kick things off with the Cook Islands. So New Zealand's paused development funds for the Cook Islands, but there seems to be a little bit of confusion over who said, what's going on. Can you just give us a bit of context and what's happened and what's your perspective on it?
Well, it's 2001, and Helen Clark's the Prime Minister, and Dr. Maoate is the Prime Minister of the Cook Islands, and they entered an agreement which we've been honouring all these 25 years, or almost 25 years, excepting there have been some changes on the Cook Islands end, and all those we have annotated in our writings to them, and we want these matters sorted out, because our responsibilities and obligations are to the Cook Islands people, and dare I say, the New Zealand taxpayers as well, and we're sorting out why there is a difference of an opinion and what the origins of it are, and how can we possibly do things better going forward. And that's a conversation between our senior officials, which is ongoing at the moment.
What do you make of Mark Brown calling the New Zealand process patronising?
Well, that is the most regrettable phrase, because it's not patronising when you realise that we are Cook Islanders, some of us, in our original history, that we left there almost 1,000 years ago, that we've never changed in our view, and nor has the Cook Islanders in our view either, because I can recall seeing former Prime Minister Tom Davis for the first time in the Cook Islands, and he said to me, welcome back and welcome home. You see, he understood, and we understood our connections, and so to accuse us of being patronising is wrong, because our responsibility is to the New Zealand taxpayer, who I do include being a number of Pacific people who've got 2 and 3 jobs and they're paying taxes, and they would like to ensure that all of the taxes that we pay, that they pay, are spent properly and within inside the rules. It's a matter of sorting out a difference of opinion, and to use a phrase like patronising, I find astonishing, because frankly, as the Foreign Minister for the 3rd time, I've gone to the wire to get the resources to do the job properly in the Pacific, and it's commonly acknowledged around the Pacific that our Pacific reset, which is part of our policy, has changed the circumstances of our engagement. And we are in conversation with all the countries in the Pacific, Melanesia, Micronesia, Polynesia, and as you look at the budget that we've put together over the years, it has been far more responsible than previous administrations that have made lots of promises but never delivered. So that's the background circumstances. We have this difference of opinion, and we said, look, when it comes to certain expenditure, it's got to be under review, because one day in a democracy like New Zealand, you end up in the House of Parliament being questioned by a lot of people about what's going on. And we need to know the answers in democratic response to the New Zealand people for whom we're accountable.
Well, what's your response? I know there's some criticism. The Cook Islands, they're able to set up development aid agreements. They've got the likes of Japan, India, the European Union and others. And then New Zealand gets heavy-handed when it comes to money from China. I know we've been in the Pacific together on trade missions. There is quite a heavy influence from the Chinese. But what's your take on that? Is it sort of dependent on where that fund's coming from? Are you concerned about the influence that China has in the Pacific?
No, our position is set out in early 2017, 2018, when we announced the Pacific Reset. And that was heavily accepted and widely accepted by the people of the Pacific as being the right approach that New Zealand should be taking. We've not changed on that. And all we're saying is that we had expected there to be consultation between the Cook Island government and the New Zealand governments on certain matters to do with international policy as part of the Clark-Maoate agreement of 2001. Nothing's changed. We have not done anything that in any way can be substantiated as being wrong with respect to that understanding. We just want that understanding respected.
Still with the Cook Islands, the 60th celebration's coming up next month. No doubt you've been to the Pacific Island many times. You've seen the celebrations they can put on there. Has there been a decision made at all on who will be attending, or is that still in discussion?
This far out, it's still in discussion, but it'll be majorly important that we send, the highest sort of representation, and that's under consideration. Will be announced before too long, as we get near the date, because it's such a fluid series of events internationally at the moment, as you can see. Things are changing by the hour, but nevertheless, this is a long-term arrangement, and yes, we'll be represented at the highest level. As to who and what, we'll let you know in time, because that hasn't been absolutely decided.
Earlier this year, let's move to Kiribati now. New Zealand announced it would review its funding to Kiribati, but would not cut existing assistance. Is that review still ongoing, or is there some things that that review that can be shared at this stage?
It's still ongoing because, as you know, I made a number of attempts to go to and discuss with the government of those people, to discuss with them the forward program. And I made the thing very, very clear. Look, I've got a Minister of Finance to answer to. I make representations on behalf of our portfolio. And one needs to know what one's talking about. If you're being asked questions by the Minister of Finance and you haven't been there, you don't know. It makes it very difficult. This was a snag in our arrangement. Look, I've been to every Pacific Forum country but one in the last 18 months. It's been a very, very busy schedule. Really been very, very extraordinary tough. And some of them more than once, in an endeavour to reconnect, because I inherited a portfolio where no one had gone during the post-COVID years at all.
Yeah, fair enough. And what would you say to the critics who say that the current Kiribati situation is partly because New Zealand was concerned about their growing ties with China? Is there any truth to that?
Well, you've got a whole lot of critics out there giving a whole lot of views, but which one got a briefing recently? Which one knows the up-to-date circumstance? Which one has been trying to and do what I've done for 20 years now, ensure we have a greater responsibility and play a greater part in the blue continent, which is 31% of the world's surface, which we all share. That's what's important here. So, you always get your critics, but when you ask them the first, second, and third question as to what they know about what actually happened, they don't know the answers. And nor do I expect them to, because they're not getting briefed, they're not being brought up to date.
Just for some context, can you give us your view on just how important those relationships are with the Pacific? And some Pacific countries every now and then have come out and maybe acting more like a parent than a partner, but that relationship that we have with the Pacific, how important is that New Zealand has with these Pacific Island nations?
Look, one of the countries in the world with the biggest Pacific population is a country called New Zealand. We have also Pacific people here working 1, 2, and 3 jobs, some of them. They pay their taxes and they are supportive of our policy in terms of foreign affairs and assistance to their former lands, but they also believe in a thing called accountability. And I believe in that too, because sooner or later you sit in front of a cabinet and being asked questions by all manner of people. You sit in front of a select committee. When you have accountability scrutiny week, you've got to be able to answer the questions. You don't spend public funds without you've done the right due diligence in every case and make sure the money lands at the foot of the intent that you originally committed it to and doesn't get siphoned off somewhere else. There's all sorts of responsibilities we've got here.
Well, one responsibility coming up, I guess, is the elections in Samoa. No doubt a lot of Pacific people in New Zealand will be looking at that and seeing what comes of it. Is New Zealand having any assistance with that at all? Not in terms of the election itself, but if in infrastructure or any help that they need getting that set up, or is that a discussion that hasn't happened?
Well, as in former times, the overall principle is this. We do not involve ourselves in other countries' elections. That's up to their people, so we never interfere. However, what we did say to Prime Minister Vaovasamanaia when the announcement was made, if you need any help in establishing the structure for the election in the time frame available, give us a call and we'll help. In the same way as we did when they had the energy crisis recently. When the power units went down, we did our best to get alternative units there to help out as fast as possible, because hydropower is something New Zealand's seriously experienced on. And this happens in multi ways all around the Pacific all the time. The sad thing is that you're the only program that's wanting to know about it, because so many people in the New Zealand mainstream media don't think that foreign affairs or our place in it is important, when it really is.
Yeah, and as a Samoan myself, that relationship with New Zealand is so special. The treaty, partnership, the friendship treaty, it is there for a reason. And I know many people in Samoa look to New Zealand as that place for the land of milk and honey. So that relationship is extremely important. Talking about your party now, New Zealand First, it's often a party that listens.
Can I just say, look, we made an offer to Fiame, Prime Minister Fiame, and at this point in time, as of right now this morning, we've not had any requests on that, but the offer still stands.
Thank you, Minister. And you've often, moving to your party now, New Zealand First, it's often a party that listens to ordinary New Zealanders heading into this next phase of government. What is the number one issue you feel as a party that the voters are frustrated by? What is that number one thing that is top of mind when it comes to issues facing Aotearoa?
This is a more complex and fascinating question than probably at any time in my lifetime that you could ask somebody like in my position. But it's still, as Bill Clinton said way back in the early 90s, it's the economy, stupid. We've got to ensure our economy performs far better, as it has in former times performed far better. And we've got to ensure we've got the right policies to take us to a far more secure, far more export successful, wealth creation successful future, so that we can pay for those fundamental things that everybody wants. Affordable housing, access to health systems, first world education, and first world wages. Those four things are what everybody wants out there. When if you rub them hard enough, that's what they want. And so what's the main issue? Well, it might sound boring to have to tell you, but it's the economy, and we've got to fix it up.
Yeah, money affects everyone, doesn't it? Hey, just on a lighter note, but you recently handed over the reins as Deputy Prime Minister to David Seymour. Your early assessment of how he's gone, what do you make of him?
It leaves up to the public to decide. I don't make assessments like that.
Love it. Love it. What a play with a straight bat.
And by the way, I spent some time yesterday with Moana Pacifica, the background to that team, because they've been getting some awful publicity recently, which is not true. It is totally false. And I want to know why on earth have the mainstream media been allowed to push this situation as though something underwater has happened when categorically they say it's not. So I'm very pleased I spent some time with them so they can sort this out.
Yeah, review under way there, and all talks we've had from PMN is absolutely incorrect, absolutely false. So, yeah, all the wonderful stuff Moana Pacifica have done on the field this year, it should shine a light on that. Have you followed their success this year at all? Yeah,
I followed the success very, very carefully. And I watched them in North Harbour there, and they've got a serious backup of people at the stadium. In fact, the stadium needs some more seats, actually, to be more successful at accommodating their interests. They've got a home place now. They're at a critical stage. But my point was, when I was listening to this, and I thought, hang on a second, a lot of this stuff is critical, it's defamatory, it's saying that money was misused. Let's go and find out the truth and find out those people who have been spreading misinformation in the mainstream media and deal to it. Now, that's what your listeners should be concerned about. Which politician is saying that? Well, you're talking to.
Oh, always appreciate your time, Foreign Affairs Minister and former Deputy Prime Minister Vaovasa Winston Peters. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
All right, stay with